No moment in your life is ever random. Every breath, every step, every encounter is woven from an invisible thread that connects you to a greater whole. Sometimes you call it destiny, sometimes coincidence, but behind all those names lies one undeniable truth. The universe is always whispering to you, and today you are here because you have heard that call, even if it was only a faint echo. Within your heart, the truth is you have never been lost, never been late, never been left behind. The universe does not operate on human schedules, it operates through synchronicity. When you are ready, everything converges to bring you to the right place at the right time with the right message. You are listening not by chance, but because a deep part of you has chosen to remember, chosen to open, chosen to return. In the dreams of childhood, you once looked at the sky and felt something beyond understanding. You once stood before the ocean, listened to the waves, and sensed that somewhere within you was also rising with that rhythm. Those moments were not illusions. They were small cracks in the veil the world often calls ordinary, through which you glimpsed the truth. This reality is not silent. It is alive, it breathes with you, and it calls you in a language beyond words. That language does not come through writing or speech, but through the strange arrangement of events, through subtle touches that awaken you. It may be a song appearing at just the right time, a number repeating before your eyes, or a stranger saying a sentence that makes you feel the entire universe is responding. This is not the play of chance. It is an invitation to step out of a long slumber and realize you are part of a symphony far greater than anything you have ever imagined. The call of the universe does not resound like thunder. It is like the quiet beat within your heart, repeating until you are willing to listen. It may come as an unexplainable urge, as the pull of a dream that wakes you with tears, or as a strange feeling that your life must hold a meaning greater than the one you are living. You know it is not an illusion because it is too real to deny. It knocks unceasingly and only waits for you to open. Many choose to ignore it. They are swept into the noisy rhythm of life, believing that working harder, having more, holding tighter is enough. But one day, right amidst that noise, emptiness appears. That emptiness is the call you have ignored. It never disappears. It only grows louder until you can no longer look away. Then you realize that happiness, safety, or meaning never comes from outside, but from the connection with the divine that has flowed within you from the beginning. There are words that must be whispered in the dark, not because they are weak, but because they need silence to go deep. These are such words. They do not seek to convince the mind, but to awaken the memory of the soul. When you let these words flow through you, they are not just sound. They are keys unlocking doors step by step, leading you back to the treasure that has always been within. Your body knows how to heal. Your heart knows how to trust. Your soul has never forgotten the way home. It is only the dust of fear, doubt, and forgetfulness that has covered it. The call of the universe is the gentle wind that sweeps away that dust, revealing a light that has never gone out. When that light appears, you do not need to force change. Change comes like a river finding its course again, natural, effortless, unobstructed. Try to remember the times you have felt right place, right time. Meeting someone who became the key to a new door. Reading a book and finding words written as if just for you. Going through a trial that seemed to push you to the bottom, only to discover that from that very depth, a door to light was opened. That is the call. It may be gentle, it may be fierce, but it always has the same purpose: to awaken you. You do not need to search for it. It has always been here, in every heartbeat, every breath, every dream. The universe is never silent. It only waits for you to listen. And the moment you open your heart, you will realize you have never been alone, never been lost, never been abandoned. You are upheld, guided, embraced by an invisible hand greater than any definition. That call does not come to hand you a new path from outside. It comes to remind you that the path has always been within. Wherever you stand, whatever you experience, that path still leads you back to source. The universe does not force, it waits patiently. So patiently that even when you wander, stumble, or give up, it still arranges for you to return to exactly where you need to stand. That is unconditional love. And when you realize it, everything begins to change. Not because the outside world suddenly becomes gentler, but because you have opened your eyes to the hidden meaning within it. You no longer see events as random, no longer see hardship as punishment. Instead, you see every detail as a message. You see every loss as an invitation to grow. You see every meeting as a piece of a vast picture. The call of the universe is not reserved for one person. It is for all. But not everyone hears it. The one who hears is the one who is ready. And when you listen, you step onto a journey your soul has long awaited. A journey that does not take you anywhere far but brings you back to yourself. Because from beginning to end, every journey is only a reminder you have never left source. You have never lost the light. And today's call is the invitation to return to the truth that you are a part of the universe and the universe is a part of you. There is a kind of language that uses no words, is written on no paper, and does not need to be translated by reason. It operates quietly, arranges silently, and sometimes reveals traces in the form of coincidences that cannot be explained. This is the language of the universe, the voice woven of vibrations, symbols, events, and the deep feelings within you that no one teaches yet you still understand. Have you ever noticed a sequence of numbers repeating everywhere on clocks, license plates, receipts, a song playing at the exact moment your mind is in turmoil, a passing phrase overheard that feels as if the universe itself is answering you? These things are not random. They are passages written in waves, in chains of events, in purposeful coincidences. But this language cannot be read with the eyes or understood with the mind. It can only be felt. When your mind is quiet, you will see that life is not as chaotic as it seems. Behind the turbulence lies an invisible order, like symbols carved on the walls of an ancient temple, revealed only when light strikes at the right angle. The question is not whether signals exist. The question is, have you learned how to listen? Ask yourself, how many times have you felt you knew in advance that something was about to happen? How many times have you felt as though a situation had already occurred, though you had never lived it? How many times have you noticed a small message, an image repeating as if waiting for you to pay attention? If you have had such moments, then the question for you is, are you ready to open your heart and relearn this primal language? Are you ready to read the world not with your eyes, but with your soul? If the answer is yes, leave a comment below, a simple "I am ready," even just the number 1. So that I know you are here, that you are listening, that you have dared to lay down your desire for change right now in this very place. That does not only let me know you are present, it gives meaning to this entire journey. Thank you deeply, and I am truly grateful for your presence. The language of the universe does not need exaggeration. It does not shout to demand attention. It patiently leaves clues, a glance, a dream, a delay that seemed meaningless, a door that does not open but instead leads you to another way more important. Those who live in haste will miss them. Those who live deeply will see them. Perhaps you are asking how to distinguish between a sign and mere chance. The answer is simple. If it touches you, if it makes you pause, if it causes you to think of something deeper, then it is no longer chance. It is the beginning of a conversation. Reality is not built by spoken language, but by vibration. Your mind sends out signals like an instrument producing sound, and reality responds like a room echoing a song. When you change the inner frequency of vibration, the outer scenery shifts to match. Some live in adversity and still see light. Some live in abundance and still see gloom. Because the language they send out to the universe is not in their words, but in the deeper layers, in their belief, in their feelings, in their state of being. The universe does not hear what you say. It hears what you are. Imagine an ancient temple buried beneath the sands of time. Its walls bear no names, no clear words, only spirals, stars, and strange symbols. The hurried will pass by. But the awakened will understand this is not decoration. This is a map, a guide, a message carved for those who dare to read with the soul. You do not need to become a scholar to understand this language. You only need to slow down, listen, observe, respect your own feelings instead of dismissing them. What you once called intuition is in fact the soul's leftover memory, where you still remember how to read the rhythm of the universe. And then one day you realize everything that has ever happened to you carried a message. Every fall is a question, every loss is a reminder, every turning point is a profound dialogue. When you see life as a story telling itself, you will no longer feel lost in your role. You will know you are being spoken to, being guided, being loved in a language beyond words. When you are quiet, the universe begins to speak. It speaks through a feeling you cannot explain. It speaks through a coincidence that makes you smile. It speaks through the song of a bird when your heart is breaking through the slant of sunlight across the window, when you are lost through an old friend suddenly calling at the moment you need it most. These are not jokes. They are confirmations that you are not lost. Every person is born already knowing this language, but over time society teaches you to doubt. teaches you to trust only the concrete, to dismiss the subtle, teaches you to live by logic and belittle intuition. Yet now you are remembering, you are opening, you are returning to the knowing that never disappeared, only temporarily veiled. When you begin to realize that every number, every dream, every event may be a message, you step into another world. Not a new world, but a new way of seeing the old one. And in that world you no longer see yourself as small. You see yourself as part of a living rhythm, breathing, speaking to you every second. And that is when everything changes. No effort needed, no begging required, only alignment. Like a river returning to its bed, like a frequency finding its channel, like a soul remembering its own song. The universe does not need you to be perfect to listen. It only needs you to be ready. And if you have read this far, perhaps you already are. Everything you think, feel, speak, or keep in silence is a form of energy. No vibration within you is invisible to the world. Whether you are aware of it or not, that energy leaves you weaves into reality and influences circumstances, people, and even things that seem unrelated. The world does not respond to your words, but to the current of energy you carry. And the universe does not operate by goodwill, but by flow. Every thought is a seed cast into the invisible river. Whether light or darkness, trust or doubt, love or fear, it continues to exist, circulates, and eventually returns to the one who released it. The law of energy flow carries neither punishment nor reward. It only carries response. You might recall a feeling that lingered long after a situation had ended. Perhaps anger, perhaps hurt, perhaps a regret without clear shape. Even though the story was over, that feeling remained like a quiet smoke, seeping into every decision, every relationship, every dream. Because energy does not disappear, it only changes form, shifts state, and returns again. There are also times when you give something away without calculation, without demand, and then goodness arises around you in ways you do not immediately connect. A word of gratitude, timely help, an opportunity unfolding as though it had never been closed. These are not coincidences. They are the flow of energy you once released, now returning gently but surely. The flow does not take sides. It does not distinguish who you are, whether you are praying or complaining. It only responds to frequency. If you emit the frequency of loss, the flow delivers situations that make you experience loss. If you emit the frequency of abundance, the flow expands that abundance. The energy you send out does not pass through a ballot or a report card. It simply returns in the form that corresponds. The ancients compared life to a great river. When you try to swim against the current with control, resistance, fear, you exhaust yourself. When you surrender to its rhythm, you realize the water lifts you forward without struggle. Not because you have given up, but because you have stopped forcing what does not belong. That is not weakness, but the wisdom of one who knows how to merge with the flow instead of fighting it. You cannot send a complaint into space and expect comfort in return. You cannot secretly wish for wholeness while nurturing lack every day. The energy you sow is seed, and reality is the harvest. Those who wish to reap without sowing will stand in an empty field wondering why the soil bears no sprout. To live in harmony with the flow of energy, you do not need to become someone else. You only need to be honest with the stream of feelings you carry. Observe them, recognize them, and choose what is worth keeping. Every negative thought you allow to linger creates another loop. Every positive vibration you nurture opens a new channel. Power lies in the choice of each moment, not in grand plans. Imagine your body as a vessel. Every thought, feeling, and word is water poured into it. If the water is clear, light passes through. If the water is murky, everything becomes blurred. You alone have the right to choose what to keep, what to release, and how to refresh it. No one else can control your vessel. No one else bears the consequences of what you allow to remain inside. And the strange thing is, just one mindful breath, one awakened moment, is enough to change the color of that water. You do not need to wait for tomorrow. You do not need to change the whole world. Simply renew your own state, and the flow around you will shift on its own. This is not wishful thinking. It is spiritual mechanics. When you emit gratitude, you release a bright signal. When you act with pure intent, the flow records and magnifies it 100-fold. Conversely, when you act from fear, things may succeed on the surface, but you will feel something is off. Because the flow does not only observe action, it observes the inner state from which you act. Every cycle repeats until the energy within is purified. Situations that hurt you return in different forms until you stop reacting the old way. When you change how you show up, the cycle ends. Not because you are lucky, but because you have shifted frequency. The mind cannot do this alone. You need the participation of body, mind, soul. Each time you hold stillness in the storm, you redirect the flow. Each time you choose understanding instead of reaction, you alter the speed and direction of the energy you send out. The law of energy flow is not foreign. It is present in the smallest actions you take each day. The way you speak to a server, the way you listen to a loved one, the way you respond to what you did not want, all are ways you interact with the river carrying you forward. You cannot control every bend, but you can control your state as you pass through it. And that state is the true current of energy that decides what comes next. When you understand this, you no longer see life as a string of disconnected events, but as a logical flow of responsive energy. Everything has a reason, and that reason lies in the frequency you choose to hold. No one can escape the flow, but anyone can learn to row with it. And once you learn, you no longer need excessive effort to move toward where you want to be. Energy carries you gently, precisely as though every door had already been prepared. Reality does not stand outside of you. It does not watch and then react. It does not judge, take sides, show favoritism or hold bias. It only reflects, precisely, without missing a detail. Because reality is a mirror so neutral that it shows you exactly what you are radiating, adding nothing, subtracting nothing. And what startles many when they understand this is that everything happening outside is not opposing them, but revealing what has already been within. Every experience you are having is a message in return. When you see obstacles repeating, when you face the same pain in different forms, when you feel reality is testing you again and again, this is not punishment. It is the mirror showing you what you are projecting. A person who lives in fear will see danger everywhere. A person burdened with doubt will always encounter reasons not to trust. A person carrying the sense of unworthiness will see doors closed in every direction. It is not the world working against them. It is the mirror reflecting the exact vibration they are holding in their field of energy. If you feel you are not respected, ask yourself, are you truly respecting yourself in every choice, every boundary, every word? If you feel others do not see your value, turn inward. Have you seen yourself yet? The mirror cannot reflect what you do not carry. The hardest part is not changing the world, but being willing to look straight into that mirror and take responsibility. Because it is easier to blame. Easier to say circumstances are unfair, people do not understand you, fate is too cruel. But when you face the mirror and ask, what am I radiating that has created this scene that is the first moment of freedom? Freedom does not come when you change everyone. It comes when you change your inner response. Freedom does not come from controlling all events. It comes from consciously adjusting the signal you are sending out. You do not need to break the mirror. You only need to change what it reflects. Imagine a bowl of clear water. When your mind is calm, the surface is still, the reflection is sharp. When you are anxious, angry, resistant, the surface ripples and all you see is distortion. Reality has not changed, only the mirror blurred by the vibrations you are nurturing. To see clearly, you only need to still it. The way you respond to a situation is the signal you send, and from that you create the next sequence. Your response is like the color you pour into the mirror. That response is not in the action, but in the state. You can speak a kind word with bitterness in your heart, and the mirror will reflect the bitterness. You can remain silent with compassion, and the mirror will reflect peace. The mirror of reality does not care what you say. It cares who you are when you say it. It does not recognize words but vibrations, and vibrations cannot be faked. Some people go through a difficult time but become clearer, warmer, more connected. Others live through the same circumstances but carry bitterness, closure, defensiveness. The difference does not lie in circumstances. It lies in the inner mirror. One uses the event to cleanse the mirror. The other uses it to paint on another layer of dust. You are living in a house without walls. Every vibration you emit bounces back. Patience, gratitude, integrity, love, when nurtured, truly become waves that open doors. Conversely, resentment, envy, fear, when accumulated, become walls that block the light. The mirror does not choose what is right or wrong. It only returns the frequency exactly. Sometimes you will see someone suddenly make a clear leap, not because they tried harder than others, but because something within them shifted out of the old loop. Perhaps it was a moment of forgiveness, a choice to love instead of distance, an act born from light instead of shadow. And that made the mirror change its hue. You do not need anyone to confirm you are changing. When you truly change, reality confirms it. With new situations, with different people, with peace that comes not from outer quiet but from a mirror cleansed. The fastest way to change life is not to fight it, but to read it as a message. If a situation keeps repeating, do not ask why it comes. Ask why you are still radiating the signal that invites it. Every event is a hint of what is running beneath. The mirror does not need perfection to reflect light. It only needs honesty. Each time you are honest with yourself, with your true feelings, true needs, true vibration, it is another layer of dust removed between you and the image you long to see. Do not try to paint on the mirror what you do not yet hold inside. Tend to the inner self so that what you want to see becomes what you truly are, and then you will not need to demand life to prove anything, because it will already be changing in silence, in subtlety, with a precision no language can imitate. Reality is a mirror. You cannot touch the reflection to alter it, but you can turn back and adjust the one standing before it. And when you do, the mirror will not only change its image, it will change your life. Before words, before actions, and even before emotions, there is always a thought. It comes quietly like a breath, passing so quickly that you often do not notice. Yet from that still place, your entire life begins. Every reality is born from thought. Every future takes root from an image once held in your mind. Thought is not something weightless drifting. It is the most subtle form of energy, both invisible and powerful enough to alter the structure of reality. A thought repeated does not dissolve into nothingness. It leaves an imprint in the field of energy around you, etches itself into the unconscious, and becomes the mold into which reality is cast. Most of what you are experiencing today did not happen by accident. They are the results of thoughts you have allowed to repeat within. Whether unconsciously or deliberately, you have been sowing commands into the fabric of your own reality. These commands do not need to be shouted. They only need to be thought again and again, long enough, deep enough, steady enough, and they become truth. The question is not whether you are thinking or not. The question is, what are you thinking? Each day you allow thousands of streams of thought to pass through, but most are unscreened. Many of them are not even yours, but come from habit, from what others have said, from old memories or unnamed fears. And when these thoughts go unchecked, they begin to accumulate, building the structure of a life you believe is imposed by external circumstances. Think back to something you once believed impossible, a dream you thought was too far away. Over time you let it go, not because it disappeared, but because you allowed limiting thoughts to replace it. Phrases like, "That's impossible, I'm not good enough," "Life doesn't work that way," these are not just words. They are seeds planted, and one day you will walk upon the ground that those seeds have produced. On the other hand, there are things you once believed in without knowing why. Yet you believed you held the image in your heart. You let it remain quietly within your vision. And then, though slowly, it found its way into form. Through opportunity, through a relationship, through an unexpected turning point. Not because you were lucky, but because you planted the right seed at the right time and kept enough persistence for it to take root. Thought is the silent architect. It does not knock loudly, does not demand attention, yet it is the very hand constructing everything you call reality. And the danger is not that you lack powerful thoughts, it is that you let them operate without a witness. A negative thought can be like a small crack. Repeated often enough, it becomes a deep groove. And if you do not pause to fill it with the light of awareness, your entire mental structure may tilt in a direction you never desired. Thoughts are like water. Left to overflow, they flood. But when guided, they nourish the whole field. A thought guided by attention becomes intention. An intention held firmly becomes action. An action repeated often becomes habit. And habit shapes character. Finally, character defines destiny. Everything begins with a fleeting thought. You do not need to think positively all the time, but you do need to recognize when you are lowering yourself through old repetitions. Thought does not distinguish between past and future. If you think something clearly enough, frequently enough, it accepts it as present and functions as though it is already happening. Imagine an artist painting not with hands but with mind. Every image he holds long in his heart is a brushstroke. Every vibration he adds is a layer of color. If he looks only at old images, painful memories, repeating scripts, the canvas becomes grey and confined. But if he begins to paint anew with images of what he truly wishes to see, not through force but through genuine feeling, then little by little the painting changes. You do not need to control every thought, but you can choose which ones deserve to stay. The ones that expand you instead of contracting you. The ones that lift you up instead of pulling you down. The ones that make you want to live each day more fully, instead of just waiting for it to pass. The power of thought does not lie in how grand it island. It lies in whether you dare to admit that you are the one who has painted the life you are living. And if you are strong enough to admit that you are strong enough to begin painting again, no rush, no noise. Just one new thought held steady each day like a small beam of light shining into a dark room. Gradually the darkness has nowhere left to stay. Reality does not change by force but by image. The images nurtured within will guide the outside. You do not need to know every answer. You only need to know what you want to see, and let that thought work as a doorway. The universe does not resist clarity. When you hold the right image, every corner around you will slowly rearrange to match, and then you realize you are not stuck. You are not limited. You are only standing inside a painting you yourself created long ago. But right now the brush is in your hand. And before you lies a new canvas waiting for the freshest, clearest, truest thoughts you are ready to give it. Stillness is not emptiness. It is the space where everything begins. Amid the noise of life, amid the countless thoughts rushing through the mind each day, there is a door that has always been open, leading into the deep silence within, where words are no longer necessary, where thoughts settle and life reveals itself in its most original form. Many fear stillness. They find it unsettling, intimidating, or seemingly useless. Because in this world where the rhythm of life has been equated with speed, where everything is measured by action and reaction, stillness is often misunderstood as weakness, stagnation, or a sign of doing nothing. But the truth is this: nothing profound ever arises out of haste. No wisdom is born from noise, and no true healing takes place when the mind still drowns out the heart. Stillness is the foundation. Every powerful vibration arises from silence. Just as music cannot exist without the pauses between notes, your inner life cannot appear without the space in which it can resound. It is there that intuition awakens, where the deepest memories of the soul rise like a soft mist, where you no longer try to understand but simply know. When you allow yourself to step back from the noise, you begin to hear what is truly happening inside. In that moment, you are no longer led by automatic chains of reaction, but begin to see clearly the choices you had not seen before. Stillness does not make you passive. On the contrary, it gives you the power to shape your responses consciously. In stillness, you do not need to perform. You do not need to be strong. You do not need to have every answer. Stillness allows you to acknowledge the dark corners, not to run from them or deny them, but to see them clearly and let them dissolve in the light of awareness. The things you once rejected or avoided when placed in the cradle of stillness naturally dissolve. Not by effort, but by presence. Stillness does not come from the outside. It does not require a soundproof room or distance from the world or long hours on a mountaintop. Stillness is a state. It begins with a decision no longer to chase, no longer to resist, no longer to lose yourself in the endless whirlpools of analysis and control. And when you truly agree, even if only for a brief moment, you will see beneath all turbulence there is always a ground that never stirs. Just as the seabed remains still no matter how turbulent the surface waves, your inner being also has an eternal point of calm. And when you touch that place, everything begins to change, not because the outside has changed, but because you are no longer controlled. You no longer react by the old patterns. You are no longer dragged by the calls of anxiety, anger, or judgment. You see them, you acknowledge their presence, but you are no longer identified with them. In stillness, you begin to distinguish between your true voice and the echoes from outside. You discern what is intuition and what is fear disguised in the mask of reason. And that is where freedom begins. Not the freedom to do anything, but the freedom from being manipulated by what you do not realize is manipulating you. Stillness is also where creativity awakens. Not the kind of creativity born from effort or pressure, but creativity as natural as water flowing when you release your hand from the valve. Profound ideas, fresh images, solutions that once seemed impossible, they do not arrive when you strain to think them up, but when you are quiet enough for them to rise. Inner stillness does not eliminate emotions. It embraces them. When you sit quietly with sadness, you will see it has a shape, a sound, a rhythm of its own. And only in the presence free of judgment can sadness be released. No fixing required, no avoidance needed, only recognition. That is also why stillness is the first thing the ancient spiritual masters always taught. Not because it helps you achieve something, but because it helps you see clearly that you have always had enough. Just be still. Add nothing. Strive for nothing. And run from nothing. Stillness is where every storm must stop, where every question no longer needs an answer, where you remember that you do not need to go anywhere to return to yourself, because you have never left. You have only been obscured by noise, and when the noise quiets, the path appears by itself. Practicing stillness does not mean disappearing from the world. It means learning to keep a quiet space even in the crowd, a space inside untouched, no matter how loud the outside becomes. That is the kind of strength no one can see but everyone can feel when they are near you. Those who carry inner stillness do not need many words to influence. They do not need display to prove anything. Their presence itself is the loudest statement. Because when you carry true peace, no one fails to feel it. It is the wordless language the world longs to rediscover. Remember this, you do not need to search for stillness. You only need to clear the way to return to it. With one slow breath, one pause amid the rhythm of life, one moment of choosing to turn inward instead of reacting. Each such moment is a step back home, and one day you will find you no longer need to try to hold on to stillness, because you have become it. Everything in the universe operates along an axis of opposites. There is no light without darkness, no yin without yang, no joy without having known sorrow, and no awakening without once having been lost. This is not irony, but the deepest principle of creation. Everything can only exist and be recognized through its opposite. The presence of darkness does not deny light. On the contrary, it makes the light visible, and where the light shines brightest, the shadow is deepest. The law of polarity is not a system of punishment. It does not divide the world into right and wrong, good and bad. It is simply a mechanism of balance. Like a pendulum, when pushed too far to one side, it must swing back to the other in order to find the center again. And if you do not understand this law, you will be dragged by those oscillations, believing that life is lifting and dropping you beyond your control. But when you begin to see the central axis, you learn how to stand in the middle, and from there every movement around you no longer makes you lose balance. Many wish to walk the path of awakening by denying what they call negative anger, sadness, failure, fear. Yet the more they resist, the stronger these forces grow. Because the law of polarity does not allow you to choose one half of experience and discard the other. No one can step into the realm of light without first having walked through shadow. Just as no one can truly know love without once having passed through loss. If you have gone through a dark period, do not rush to judge it. Do not be quick to push past it. Instead, look again what was awakened within you because of those times. Perhaps resilience you never knew you had. Perhaps empathy you had never touched before. Perhaps a faith once broken, rebuilt with stronger material. Those periods did not merely happen to you, they were summoned to balance what you needed to learn. A seed must sink into the darkness of soil before reaching for the sunlight. A child must cry before it can laugh. Every beginning passes through shadow, not as punishment but as preparation, because if you only knew light without any experience of darkness, you would not truly value anything. And you would not be able to stand firm when that light is temporarily obscured. Wisdom does not come from avoiding pain. It comes from daring to walk through pain without losing yourself. When you accept that emotions with a darker shade are not faults but natural parts of the cycle of life, that is when transformation begins. Not through the effort of erasure, but through acceptance that allows something to be made whole again. You do not need to love the darkness, but you need to look directly at it without fear. For it is precisely where you refuse to look that your power remains trapped. Every shadow you have denied is a portion of energy not yet released, and if you are brave enough to sit with it, calm enough not to rush to fix it, present enough to breathe with it, you will see it dissolve. Like mist before the morning sunday, no forcing required. Only your willingness not to turn away. There is a subtle but profound truth: the more you avoid the shadow, the more it controls you. But when you step into it, recognize it, and bring the light of presence to it, you become free. The emotions you once thought of as weaknesses, when touched with honesty, become bridges leading you to compassion, gentleness, and deeper healing. Just as music needs low notes to highlight the crescendos, your life needs negative experiences to enrich feeling and inner depth. If there were only uninterrupted joy, you would no longer recognize it as joy. If there were only ease, you would lose awareness of the fragility and preciousness of each moment. The law of polarity also teaches you the letting go of control. When you want everything to unfold only in a positive direction, you become one who resists nature. But when you understand that every movement, including the uncomfortable ones, is an indispensable part of the process of growth, you stop resisting. You learn to move with it, to adjust yourself amidst the expansion and contraction of the universe, and thus you become more flexible, wiser, and more at peace than ever before. This does not mean you should seek out suffering, but when it comes, you do not collapse. You see it as part of the oscillating graph. And then you ask yourself, what am I learning through this experience? Which part of me is being completed? Can I open my heart wider, even when things do not go my way? Darkness is not the enemy of light. It is the backdrop that makes light visible. And only when you understand this do you stop dividing half the world into needed and the other half into to be avoided. You begin to walk the middle path, not pulled too high, only to fall, not held too long in the depths. You know how to walk in balance like one on a tightrope, neither wavering nor proud nor despairing. This is not compromise. This is maturity. Maturity happens when you no longer react extremely to every oscillation but perceive the whole picture. When you see the necessity of both poles, shadow and light, you truly become the navigator of your own journey. No longer swept away, no longer pushed around, but choosing your steps with feet grounded in deep understanding of the universe's rhythm. And from that understanding, you no longer fear the dark phases, because you know the light will return. And when it does, you will welcome it not with the self that once tried to control, but with a heart expanded by shadow, tutored by unseen fractures, and deepened enough to know every opposite is only two faces of the same essence. Time, as we usually understand it, is only the surface of a much deeper current. Clocks that count hours, strict schedules, countdown numbers, all are simply ways humans use to fix something that cannot be held. Because time is not a straight line. It does not begin at one point and end at another. It is a spiral repeating cycles of different qualities, each turn higher than the last, and it is precisely this that creates evolution. Have you ever felt as though you were returning to the same lesson? An old situation coming back with a new face. An emotion you thought was finished suddenly revived in an entirely different context. If so, then you are not circling back to the beginning. You are stepping forward on a higher spiral. The lesson does not return to punish. It returns to be completed. That is the natural rhythm of true time, always carrying a second chance, a third, and more so, that you can see clearly what you had never fully seen before. In the physical world, time is measured by the distance between movements. But in the world of consciousness, time is measured by realization. Some people pass 10 years with no renewal within. Others need only one moment to awaken and step into an entirely new chapter. Therefore, time is not something that passes. It is something you enter. And depending on your level of awareness, you may step into a quiet stream of repetition and delay, or into a stream of awakening depth and transformation. The hidden flow of time does not follow pre-written plans. It follows inner ripening. A desire may arise early but go unanswered, not because you are unworthy, but because you are not yet in true resonance. Not every door is meant to open the first time you knock. Some doors require you to return many times each time, with greater maturity, with deeper sincerity. And when you match the frequency of it, there is no reason it should deny you any longer. Have you ever thought you missed an opportunity, regretted a decision made long ago? But time does not operate by taking away. It operates by returning. What remains unfinished will appear again, not to torment you, but to let you complete it from a new version of yourself. And sometimes what you thought was late actually arrives at the exact moment you are truly ready to receive it without breaking it. Time does not heal wounds. Time only creates distance. It is awareness within you that heals. And when you begin to see repeated cycles no longer provoke the same reactions, that is the moment you realize you have changed. You are stepping onto a higher spiral in your own flow. True time does not move forward like an arrow. It is like a river with many branches. Each choice you make, each thought you keep, each state you nurture, these are subtle shifts in direction. Some decisions open streams that are faster, deeper, richer with opportunity. Others pull you back into familiar loops. Not because you are punished, but because the flow always takes you to the place corresponding to the openness within. Time can become an ally if you know how to listen. It does not speak in ordinary words, but in synchronicity. A friend appearing at the right moment. A piece of information arriving when you are doubtful. A delay that seems senseless but spares you from disaster. When you learn to read the language of time, you are no longer impatient. You begin to trust that everything has its season of bloom, and no one can force a flower to blossom before its time. To live in harmony with the hidden flow of time, you must release the pressure to achieve within a fixed frame. Every soul has its own schedule. Comparison pulls you out of your natural rhythm and breaks your alignment with your personal stream. Someone who succeeds early has not necessarily reached the finish, and someone who moves slowly has not been left behind. In this universe, no one is late if they are still walking with true awareness. There is a kind of slowness that is noble. The slowness of one who does not force, does not rush, but moves steadily with inner strength and understanding. And there is a kind of quickness that is fragile. The speed of one running from fear, pulled by expectation, and soon exhausted in a race they built themselves. When you truly understand the hidden flow of time, you see that nothing is ever too late. Everything is arriving on time. The question is not when, but am I truly ready? And if the answer is not yet, that is not failure. That is an invitation to turn inward, to clarify further, to release the unnecessary, to become empty and light enough to receive what is new. Sometimes all you need is to stop and breathe. Not because you are tired, but because you must resynchronize with the deeper rhythm at work. That flow of time does not need you to force it. It only needs you not to resist it. When you know how to release at the right moment, to step at the right time, to listen deeply enough, you will see that what once seemed distant comes naturally toward you without struggle, without competition, like a river returning to its river course after testing all its branches. And in that moment you are not merely living in time, you are walking with it, like one no longer swept away but dancing with each beat of the universe, quietly, precisely, and with a strength rooted from within. Every soul upon entering this world passes through a thin veil, not a curtain of fabric but an invisible layer that covers the memory of where it came from. We call it forgetting. And within that forgetting you begin a journey that seems new but is in fact only another turn of remembering. You do not truly lose anything. You only temporarily forget it, like a great game designed to let you experience the feeling of being found once again. From the earliest years of life, you feel something deeper whispering. You cannot put it into words, but it is present in the gaze of your eyes, in your dreams, in those quiet moments when you look at the sky and know for certain that you come from somewhere else. Gradually, society begins to teach you how to live realistically. It teaches you to forget the miraculous in order to adapt to the reasonable. It teaches you to ask questions only in the right form, to find answers from the pre-written key, and to measure your worth by standards others have created. And then one day you look into the mirror and ask, who am I? Not the name, not the title, not the role, but what remains when all outside definitions are stripped away. That question does not arise randomly. It is the first signal that remembering has begun to stir. The veil of forgetting is not punishment. It is the condition that allows you to relearn old lessons as though they were brand new. If you still remembered the entirety of your soul's journey, you would never need to try to err, to hurt, to choose. But it is precisely within forgetting that you truly live, that you truly know love, know loss, know what it means to choose light amid darkness. And each time you choose love instead of fear, you are gradually lifting that veil. There are memories not written in words, but etched into the body. You meet someone and feel as though you have known them from another lifetime. You arrive at a strange place, and your heart sinks as though you have walked there before. Symbols, sounds, images that move you for no clear reason. All are cracks in the veil where the light of memory still seeps through. The journey of remembering does not come through memorization, but through awakening. You do not need to read more to know who you are. You only need to remove the layers of prejudice, wounds, and expectations that have been built like walls. Each time you choose silence to hear your true voice, you are remembering. Each time you stop reacting out of habit and choose to be present, you are remembering. And each time you stop asking the world who you are and turn inward to listen, you are returning. No one else can lift the veil for you. No one can hand you self-recognition as a wrapped gift, because you are not lacking anything. You are only obscured by too many false things. And remembering does not come through striving. It comes through letting go. Letting go of the idea that you must become enough to be seen. You have always been enough. You only forgot. Each time you encounter pain, it is not merely a wound. It is a tear in the veil, a place where you can see through if you are brave enough. Each challenge is a disguised door, and only those who pause to observe will notice the handle right there. Those who rush past call it fate. Those who awaken call it an invitation. The memory of the soul is not in the head. It is in the field of energy you carry. You do not need to recall every detail of past lives to live rightly. You only need to live honestly with your true nature in the present. Real vibration does not lie. And when you align with the frequency of your soul, everything begins to feel so familiar that you no longer need a reason to believe. Remembering is not a journey of learning more. It is a journey of shedding. Shedding what others think of you. Shedding what you believed you must do. Shedding the voice that whispers you are not enough, not right, not worthy. And as those sounds fade, you begin to hear again your original heartbeat, steady, clear, and unbroken. In many ancient cultures, initiation rites began with blindfolding or isolation, not to harm but to create temporary separation from the outer world in order to reactivate the memory within. Only when you no longer see with your eyes can you learn to see with your heart. Only when you no longer hear with your ears can you learn to listen with your soul. And only when you no longer cling to names, roles, achievements, can you touch the part within that cannot be named. Forgetting is the soil. Remembering is the sprout pushing up through that soil. You cannot pull it out, but you can create the conditions for it to grow by living truthfully, by speaking what is true to your heart, by keeping silence when needed, by refusing to keep playing roles. When you stop trying to be someone, you begin to become yourself, and the veil gradually falls on its own. No one comes to awaken you. You are the one who chooses the moment to open your eyes. No trumpet sounds to announce your return. There is only a feeling, gentle, deep, that you have known this all along, and now you are remembering. You do not need to speak a single word for the world to sense what you carry inside. Every glance, every step, every breath, everything you emit is a wave. And waves, though invisible to the naked eye, still spread, still touch other fields of energy, still quietly reshape circumstances, people, and even destiny. This is not philosophy or belief. This is vibration, the most primal and profound language of the entire universe. Everything vibrates. A stone, a petal, a cell, a star, a thought, an emotion. They vibrate at different frequencies, and it is precisely these differences that create form. But behind every form is a field of waves in constant motion. You are not separate from that law. You are a living field of vibration, always transmitting signals outward, always receiving responses that match the frequency you hold. When you carry fear, you emit contraction. When you carry gratitude, you emit expansion. When you carry fullness, everything around you begins to resonate with that feeling. Opportunities arrive. Doors open. People aligned with you appear as if by a coincidence long arranged. And conversely, if you live in a constant state of lack, no matter how hard you try, you will find yourself circling back to the same familiar point-delay disconnection collapse. Vibration cannot be faked. You may speak fine words, do the right things, smile at the right moment, but if inside you are weighed down by unease, it is that vibration which is transmitted, and that is what the universe responds to. The world does not operate by appearances. It responds truthfully to real frequency. And that is why some people, without speaking much, make others feel safe, relieved, at peace. That is the power of a vibrational field cleansed, elevated over time through awareness, through the practice of authenticity. They do not try to shine. They are simply at a frequency high enough that they need not prove anything. Vibration is also the reason you feel a special pull towards certain people, certain places, or certain dreams. It is not random emotion, it is resonance. Two compatible frequencies will find each other draw closer and amplify together. Just like the right piece of music at the right moment, a landscape that stirs deep memory, or an encounter that seems fleeting yet leaves a lasting imprint. Everything you desire is not just an image but a vibrational state. When you say, "I want peace," what you truly want is the vibration that peace carries. When you pray for abundance, it is not just money you seek, but the frequency of sufficiency, freedom, ease, and that does not arrive through magic, but through becoming that frequency first, and then everything else adjusts to match. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. And what you are is defined by the vibration you hold consistently each day, not in moments of inspiration, but in the smallest habits. With what state of mind do you wake up? With what presence do you eat? With what consciousness do you speak with others? These shape your field, and from that field the setting of your life is constructed. Raising vibration is not thinking positive. It is the subtle process of recognizing what is weighing you down, what is making you flee from yourself. It is the process of clearing from how you speak inwardly to the emotions you have never allowed yourself to feel. When you clear the inner space, vibration rises on its own like light streaming in when you draw back the curtain. No forcing needed, only the removal of dust long untouched. Vibration is not fixed. It shifts every minute, every hour, depending on how you care for yourself, on how you choose to respond to the world. And therein lies the greatest opportunity. You are not trapped in any frequency forever. You have the power to change, the ability to choose again, the freedom to redirect the field you live within. And every time you choose a higher vibration, love instead of fear, forgiveness instead of judgment, acceptance instead of resistance, you are shifting your reality. There are those who labor all their lives yet never feel better. Not because they have not tried enough, but because their inner vibration has not changed. You cannot build a new structure on a foundation with old cracks. Likewise, you cannot create a fresh reality if your base vibration still echoes with the old doubt, fracture, weariness. To change your life, you do not need to begin with the world. You need only begin with a shift in vibration. That is the foundation of every miracle. When you change frequency, what no longer fits will leave. What was closed will open, and what you never imagined will find its way to you. Not by luck, but because you have become the person to whom it already belongs. You are a living piece of music, and you have the power to choose the rhythm, the pitch, the harmony that is yours. When you become a clear melody, life itself will find a way to accompany. There are things that cannot be expressed in words, cannot be explained by reason, yet still make your heart tremble the moment you encounter them. An image, a sound, a fleeting dream, a small symbol appearing amid countless things that seem random, all of these are like signals from a place deep, ancient, beyond time, piercing through the shell of reason to remind you that you once knew, once remembered, and have always carried within you a sacred map. Symbols are not objects, they are doors. Each true symbol is a point of intersection between two layers of reality, the layer of the material world and the layer of soul memory. When a symbol makes you pause, stirs your heart without you knowing why, that is the moment a door has opened. And if you are still enough, deep enough, trusting enough, you can step through and see more clearly what the mind has never touched. In every ancient civilization, symbols were never decoration. They were codes, spiritual maps, repositories of layers of knowledge too profound to be written into words. A spiral is not just a drawing, it is the memory of the evolutionary turn. An eye between the brows is not mere mysticism, it is the sign of awakening beyond duality. A circle with a dot at its center, like the sun in ancient signs, is the emblem of union between center and circumference, between source and expression, between soul and form. Symbols do not create energy. They awaken the energy already within you. Just as a key does not create a door, but only opens what has always existed. Each time you connect with a symbol, you are not only looking at an image, you are resonating with a vibrational layer the symbol carries. And if you allow yourself to be guided, you will discover that behind those seemingly simple lines lies a layer of language no words could replace. There are symbols that appear repeatedly in your life, on the cover of a book, in a dream, within a sudden scene. You may have ignored them many times, thinking them coincidence. But the universe does not send repeating signals unless it wants you to pause. Sometimes those symbols do not arrive to give you an answer, but to awaken a question. And it is the question itself that becomes the compass leading you closer to the deeper memory of the soul. Soul memory does not operate through logic. It moves through image, through feeling, through vibration. Symbols are the original language of this memory. They bypass analysis, striking directly into intuition. The right symbol does not need explanation. It makes you feel something fits is true, already known. though you do not know from where. That is memory being stirred not through learning but through direct contact. And in this world, symbols are abundant. They hide in nature: the spiral of a seashell, the star pattern of a snowflake, the jagged line of lightning, the symmetry of a leaf. They live in your body chakras, the pineal gland, the heartbeat, the balance between the two hemispheres of the brain. They slip into dreams, into music, into architecture, into the gaze of a stranger who feels like someone long familiar. The issue is not the absence of symbols. The issue is whether you still have the ability to recognize them. Once you begin to notice, symbols appear more often, as if the universe were whispering, "Do you remember?" And if you answer with openness, with a willingness to observe without needing to understand immediately, then the miracle begins. You will see them guiding you, connecting events that once seemed scattered, revealing what you had intuited, but never dared to believe. On the inner path, symbols are not just signs, they are companions, signals that help you not to lose your way, the way the universe converses with you when words are no longer subtle enough. And here lies another wonder: you yourself are also a symbol. The way you walk, the way you love, the way you heal, the way you are present in life, all of it radiates vibration. All of it speaks of something beyond name, beyond role, beyond achievement. Your soul carries a blueprint, a pattern no one else can copy. When you live true to that blueprint, you do not only become the best version of yourself, you become a living symbol, a point of light, reminding others of their own memory. Begin to look at your life again as a map of symbols. Events that repeat may be reminders. People who arrive at the right time may be mirrors. Objects, images, sounds that make your heart tremble may be codes. And you do not need anyone to explain them. You only need to be still enough to hear, true enough to believe, and humble enough to walk alongside them like a student slowly remembering a language that was once your own. And then one day you will realize you were never lost. You have only been living amid a treasury of symbols not yet decoded. And each time you recognize a symbol, it is another moment you touch the memory of the soul. Once again you remember, desire is not the enemy. It is the silent engine that pushes life forward. Without desire, without longing, without the pull of what we have yet to touch, all movement would cease. The universe would fall into stillness. But if we do not see the true nature of desire, we will live like puppets pulled by invisible strings. We imagine that we are choosing, but in reality we are being led by a thirst that never knows enough. Desire is energy. But when it is left unilluminated, that energy casts a shadow, and it is this shadow that traps people in cycles. Desire not understood becomes addiction. Desire not acknowledged becomes manipulation. Desire not directed becomes obsession. And on a deeper level, it disguises itself in the forms of fame, money, control, possessive love, lust for power, or the need to prove oneself. There is a truth not easy to admit. People often do not know what they truly want. What we think we are chasing, recognition, perfection, eternal love, often is only the surface of an unnamed emptiness within. A person obsessed with power does not love power but once felt ignored. A person who cannot stop seeking the spotlight does not truly love the light but once was unseen in their own family. The shadow of desire is the hiding place of wounds, and if you do not look into it, you will continue to live in cycles of reaction. The more you achieve, the more you feel lacking. The more you own, the more you fear losing. The closer you come to what you think you crave, the more empty you feel in the end. Not because those things are wrong, but because they were never meant to fill the hole you have not dared to name. We cannot kill desire, nor should we, but we can make it clear. When you look long enough, honestly enough into a desire, you will see its light and its shadow. Its light is where it propels you toward life, creativity, connection, growth. Its shadow is where it makes you search outside for what can only be healed within. And when you can tell the difference, you are no longer controlled. No desire is bad if you are willing to face the true reason behind it. The longing to be loved is not wrong, but if you believe that someone must love you in order for you to have value, that is the shadow. Wanting wealth is not wrong, but if you believe money will quiet the fear you carry about your worth, that is the shadow at work. Ambition is not wrong, but if you need a title to feel useful, you are living from a wound, not from strength. True healing begins when you look directly at your desire without judgment. When you pause before a decision, an action, or a rising urge and ask, which part of me wants this? Is it the voice of the heart or the echo of fear? Desire does not need to be eliminated. It needs to be transformed. The very same energy, if channeled into creativity, gives birth to beauty. If directed into service, it becomes contribution. If infused with unconditional love, it becomes the vibration of healing. But if repressed or denied, it will find its way out through unconscious acts, judging others, doubting oneself, causing hidden harm. An essential part of spiritual maturity is not extinguishing desire, but learning to move through it, to see it clearly, to embrace it, and then to put it in its rightful place, not in the driver's seat, but not locked away either. When you do this, the energy once stuck begins to flow again, and you feel lighter. Not because you abandoned what you want, but because you are no longer controlled by it. The paradox is this: only when you are no longer dependent on what you crave are you truly able to hold it. One who no longer needs love to feel complete is the one who can love most deeply. One who no longer needs money to feel safe is the one who can create the most lasting value. One no longer ruled by desire is the one who can use that energy to light the way for themselves and for others. Remember this: what you want is never the thing you truly want. Behind every desire is a feeling. Behind the feeling is either a wound or a truth that longs to be seen. And if you are brave enough to go deep enough, you will no longer repeat the cycle. No one escapes desire, but everyone can learn to walk through its shadow. And once you pass through, you will understand one thing: energy never disappears. It only waits for you to return, to place your hands back on the wheel and to steer the vehicle of your life in the direction your soul truly longs to go. Nothing in this universe is static. Everything moves. All life inhales and exhales. Every cycle has its moment of fullness and its return to emptiness. If you look deeply, you will see a simple truth: no one can only receive without giving, and no one can only give without being nourished again by a flow of equal measure. Giving and receiving are not mere actions. They are a rhythm. And if you live out of sync with that rhythm, sooner or later you will feel unbalanced. Some give endlessly but feel depleted. Some cling tightly but watch everything slip away. Some help constantly, yet inside they feel lost and lacking. Others hoard endlessly, but the more they gather, the more hollow they feel. The world does not operate by accumulation. It operates by circulation. Blood circulates within you. Breath circulates. Water flows through the rivers. Love, kindness, knowledge, care, all of these hold meaning only when shared. If you only hold without giving, you will feel everything begin to slow. And if you only give without allowing yourself to receive, you will gradually run dry inside. There are those who believe they need nothing, that they live for others, for ideals, for service. But deep within that is sometimes a wound unhealed, a feeling of unworthiness to receive. And so they turn themselves into martyrs, always ready to help, but never open to accept support, until they are exhausted or feel forgotten, or lose faith in the goodness they once trusted. On the other hand, there are those who believe that unless they hold tightly, everything will vanish. They live in worry, guarded, closed off from connection. But the tighter they hold, the more isolated they become. The more they close, the more they lose what could naturally have come to them if only they had let go. Giving and receiving are not bargains, not exchanges, not I give you this so you give me that. They are the flow passing through you. Sometimes you are the one who transmits. Sometimes you are the one who receives. Sometimes you need only step aside so you do not block the current flowing through someone else's life. And you do not need to give great things. A smile is also a gift. A look of understanding is also a receiving. A timely word, a moment of listening without judgment, a small yet sincere act, all of these keep energy circulating. And when energy circulates, life becomes lighter, easier, more flexible and alive. Some say, I have given so much, but no one appreciates it. But the question is not how much you gave, but whether you gave with an open heart. Did you truly give without expecting anything in return? Because if you gave hoping for a response, then you were not giving, you were investing. And if it did not yield as you wished, you would be disappointed. But if you give like a sower of seeds, not needing to know which day it will bloom, only knowing that the seed is worth planting, you will always feel rich inside, regardless of when the outcome arrives. The same is true with receiving. If someone wants to help you, to love you, to bring good to you, accept it with gratitude, without guilt, without the weight of debt, without telling yourself you are unworthy. Because when you refuse to receive, you refuse a part of yourself. When you do not allow yourself to receive, you tell the universe you are not worthy of love, support, or being lifted, and you will find yourself in a state of having to do everything alone, to strain, to control. But you were not born to live that way. You were born to live in a flow where giving and receiving are a graceful dance, not forced. Giving and receiving are not two separate acts. They are two faces of the same movement. Like waves cannot rise without falling. Like a tree cannot reach upward without roots sinking deep. Each time you give, create space for something else to come in. And each time you receive, ask yourself, where can I pass this onward? You do not need to cling in order to keep. What you give from love will always return, not necessarily in the same form, but in a higher, lighter, wider vibration. And what you receive with an open heart becomes new energy to continue the giving. That is how life is sustained, not by possession, but by circulation, not by struggle, but by understanding. And perhaps what you need is not more but a readjustment of rhythm, gently without haste. Open a little, receive a little, give a little, and then watch how life responds when you live not only to hold but to flow. There is a place that no map can lead to, no coordinates, no gravel path, no old wooden gate. And yet that place has always existed, silent, steady, indestructible. It is the temple within every human being, the place that holds knowledge. No one has taught the place that guards a light. No one can extinguish the place where your soul retreats when the outer world becomes too loud. No one can enter that temple for you. No one can open it through advice, teachings, or outward success. Only you, when you are silent enough, deep enough, honest enough with yourself, can find the way in. And when that door opens, you are no longer the seeker of knowledge. You become its keeper. The keeper of knowledge is not one who hides it away, nor one who shouts what they know. It is the one calm enough not to be carried away by the noise of words, humble enough to understand that all knowing is but an outer garment for what cannot be named. They keep knowledge not to own it, but to protect its sacredness from haste consumption and shallow interpretation. Within you, that temple has never been lost. But sometimes it is buried under the dust of expectations, of borrowed learning, of the fear of not being recognized. You move from class to class, from one teacher's words to another's theory. You accumulate, you memorize, you repeat, you master language. And yet the more you learn, the more you feel something remains empty, as though you know much but understand nothing deeply. As though your mind is full of words, but the silence within has never been heard. True knowledge does not come from adding more. It comes from stripping away others' definitions of what wisdom island, stripping away comparison, stripping away the voice that insists you must know more in order to feel enough. For understanding does not bloom in anxious minds. It blooms when you stop straining to appear wise and begin living as one who has remembered. The inner temple is where all knowledge dissolves into understanding, where there is no longer a line between student and teacher, between question and answer, between books and experience, between theory and presence. All folds into a state so simple, it feels strange, knowing without the need to prove, seeing without the need to explain, believing without the need to argue. And in that moment you begin to shift from seeker of knowledge to its keeper. The keeper of knowledge need not be the most noticeable. They may be the quietest in the room, yet their presence makes others want to listen, not because they have much to say, but because they do not speak unless it is truly needed. They do not scatter what they know to earn admiration, but hold it as one tends a flame burning quietly in the night. When you return to your inner temple, you will see that what you once sought outside has always been there from the beginning. Not new knowledge, but a new way of seeing. You no longer ask right or wrong, gain or loss, success or failure. You begin to ask, is this true for me? And when you live true to that, you act as a keeper, guarding truth from being diluted by the need to please, guarding light from being hidden by the ego's urge to prove. The inner temple needs no decoration. It needs no praise. It only needs you to return, to sit, to listen. And in that moment you no longer need to seek anything more. Because you will realize the deepest wisdom is not knowledge itself, but the state of readiness to listen to life whispering through each breath, each small detail. And not everyone hears it. Only those no longer bewitched by outer noise can. You do not need to stand on a stage to share what you know. Sometimes you only need to live as a mirror, still bright, clear. When someone looks at you, they do not see teaching, they see truth. And truth does not need protection. It only needs to be lived. That is how you keep the flame of knowledge alive, through your steady, simple yet unmistakable presence. That temple is where you will return when the world outside grows too chaotic, where you remember that you are not your roles, not praise or criticism, not success or failure. You are one holding a fragment of the memory of the whole, and each time you live authentically, you keep that memory breathing in this world. The world does not need many keepers of knowledge, only a few clear enough, true enough, humble enough, strong enough not to hide behind pretense. And if you are one of them, you will know the greatest thing is not how much you know, but how much of that knowing you have lived. Keep that temple within your heart. Do not rush to open it for anyone merely curious. Wait until someone arrives, not with questions, but with presence. When they are silent, when their eyes no longer seek, when they touch something that cannot be named, you will know this is the moment the door may open. And then no lesson is given. Only a space is held clean enough, still enough, deep enough for true knowledge to enter by itself. What are you looking at? What are you listening to? What are you giving your attention to each day, in the moments you think are unconscious? There is a truth often overlooked, yet it determines almost the entirety of your reality. Wherever you place your attention, that is what begins to grow. And there is no force in this world stronger than a consistent mind focusing the whole of its light in one single direction. Attention is not merely the act of the eyes. It is a subtle current of energy flowing out of consciousness. When you give attention to something, you are breathing life into it. A vague thought, when repeated under the gaze of attention, becomes belief. A fleeting emotion, if nourished by your focus, becomes a lasting state. An image in your mind, when held steadily enough with attention, begins to shape choices, behaviors, and gradually reality itself. You do not need to strive to change the entire world. You only need to change what you are paying attention to. If you fixate on fear, you will find endless reasons to worry. If you dwell in gratitude, you will see beauty, even in the smallest things. If you hold your attention on what you desire instead of what you lack, you begin to create a rhythm aligned with what you are moving toward. But attention is fragile. It is easily stolen by screens, by noise, by the stories of others, by the habits of fragmentation. And once you no longer master your attention, you also lose the right to shape your own reality. You become a reactor, no longer a creator. You begin to live as though everything happens to you, instead of recognizing that you have silently agreed by continuing to give attention to what no longer nourishes you. There is a simple way to check the direction of your life. Look at what you spend most of your time thinking about when no one is around. Is it your dream or your fear? Is it the version of yourself you are growing into, or the mistakes you still have not forgiven yourself for? Is it inspiration or doubt? Attention does not lie. It tells you what truly holds power within you, not with words but with frequency. And the miracle is you can choose again. Each morning when you wake, you can ask yourself, where will I place my light today? What will I water to grow? Will I let my mind replay the old script, or will I write a new one? Because the moment you shift attention away from fear, away from doubt, away from what no longer serves you, it begins to weaken. And when you place your attention back on your dream steadily, consistently, with trust, that dream begins to live. A dream is not something vague. It is the language of the soul. Each image that appears in your imagination is not just fancy. It is the vibrational blueprint of a possibility waiting to be born. If you can see it in your mind, it means you already hold an energetic copy. And what decides whether it becomes real is not luck. It is attention. Do you dare to look at that dream every day as though it has already happened? Do you have the persistence to keep your light there, even when the outer world shows no signs yet? Attention is soil, the dream is the seed, and emotion is water. If you only plant a wish but do not water it with daily presence, the seed lies dormant. But if each day you spend a few minutes to visualize, to feel, to cradle your dream as though it already lives within you, you will see the first signs appear. Not dramatically, but through quiet synchronicities, chance words, sudden sparks of inspiration. That is how reality is formed, step by step, from steady, silent, unwavering attention. Do not let anyone steal your dream just because they cannot see what you see. And do not steal your own dream by no longer looking at it. Nothing is too far if you are close enough in attention. And nothing is impossible if you stay with it long enough without doubt. Steadfast attention is the strongest declaration you can send into the universe. I have chosen this. I am ready. And then let that dream become part of your rhythm. Do not hold it as something distant. Let it flow through the way you breathe, the way you choose your words, the way you walk. Let every small act be a whisper to that dream: I am still here. I have not forgotten. I am living for this. Because in the end, you do not create reality through hurried action. You create it through the consistency of attention. When you keep your inner gaze fixed in one direction, day after day, hour after hour, moment after moment of awareness, then what you once dreamed of is no longer what you await. It is what you are already living with. You were taught to believe that you are an individual being, that this is your body, this is your name, these are your thoughts, and everything else that is the world. Yet there is something few ever tell you: that feeling of separation is not an absolute truth. It is only a mental shell created so you can function in physical life. A useful shell, but if you never look beyond it, you will be trapped in an isolation you do not even realize exists. Loneliness does not come from the absence of others. It comes from the impression that you have been cut off from something greater. You may stand in the middle of a crowd and still feel empty. You may be surrounded by loved ones and still sense an unnameable distance within. For it is not physical distance that divides us, but a mistaken perception of our true nature. Separation is an illusion, like seeing the sun reflected on water and believing there are two suns. On the surface you have your own name, your own story, your own dreams and wounds. But at a deeper level you are part of the living web, pulsing through all species, all forms, every moment. Observe how you breathe. There is no clear border between the air within and the air outside. You take in a part of the world and give back a part of yourself. Look at the water flowing through your hands. It does not ask for your name nor require you to prove anything. It simply flows. Just as sunlight does not distinguish who will receive and who will not, it shines on all without prejudice. So if life itself does not divide, why do you feel separate? Because the human mind is programmed to classify. This is me, that is you. This is good, that is bad. This is inside, that is outside. And in this endless labeling we forget that all is but the rippling surface of a single ocean. We forget that the reason you feel pain when others suffer is because some part of you still remembers we are not different at all. When you believe you are separate, you live defensively. You build shells, raise fences, wear masks. You fear not being understood, fear being hurt, fear being judged. And so you keep everything inside: your feelings, your dreams, the fragile parts of your heart, as though the outer world were a dangerous land. But in closing yourself off this way, you begin to cut yourself from the life that longs to embrace you. The world is not against you. But if you live as though you are alone in an invisible battle, you will never feel the support that is always present. When you step beyond the sense of me and the world and begin to see I am part of this flow, you no longer need to fight. You begin to cooperate. You begin to listen. You begin to understand that what comes to you is not there to punish, but to call you home. Home to where? To the wholeness you have never truly left. To the connection that has always been but has been obscured by too many layers of definition. To the truth that you do not need to do anything grand to be worthy of love. You only need to realize you have never been separate from it. From that place, all relationships begin to change. You no longer see others as characters in your story, the one who hurt you, the one who did not understand, the one you must surpass. Instead, you see them as different waves of the same ocean. Each person comes to mirror a part of you. Each encounter is a reflection, and you stop blaming, stop judging, stop expecting someone else to fill the emptiness inside, because you see that emptiness was only an illusion born of the mistaken belief in separation. You do not need to dissolve the ego, you only need to see through it. It is not evil, it is a tool, but do not let the tool become the master. When you live from the deeper layer of connection, you feel lighter, less anxious, less defensive. You realize you do not need to strain to be accepted. You do not need to prove to be loved, for you have become the one who opens the door instead of holding the key shut. And when you open, you allow others to open. When you live authentically, you permit others to be brave enough to live authentically too. When you no longer fear being hurt, you create a safe space for other hearts to speak. In that space, we are no longer strangers. We begin to remember we have always belonged to one another. Perhaps you will not see this clearly right away. Perhaps the mind will still doubt, still want to analyze, verify, seek proof. But you do not need to convince the mind. You only need to listen to the heart, where separation has never existed, where all the pain of the world is felt, where a hug, a gaze, a silent presence can heal. Try living one day as though you are not separate. Look at others as if you were looking at another part of yourself. Speak the words you need to hear. Listen as though you were being listened to. Give as though you were sending to yourself in another form. And if in some moment you forget, it is all right. Just return. Each time you remember, you are breaking another layer of the illusion. Each time you choose connection, you soften a place long frozen. Each time you live as part of the whole, you bring your reality closer to truth. That truth does not need to be proven. It only needs to be lived. And you do not need to wait for anyone else to live it with you. You only need to begin. Begin with a gaze, with the way you touch life, with the way you choose to believe there is no boundary real enough to stand when love is vast enough to cross it. There are moments when everything seems to fall into place in the strangest way. You think of someone and they call. You are torn about a decision, and a random book falls into your hands, opening to the exact page you need to read. A passing remark from a stranger sounds like a message from the universe. These are not coincidences. They are the synchronized beats between you and the invisible river flowing through all life. Synchronicity is not rare. It happens constantly. It is only that we live too busy, too scattered, too noisy to notice. Every time you become still, you begin to hear that rhythm of coincidence. Not coincidence as in randomness, but the coincidence of waves. You touch a vibration, and that vibration begins to resonate with what carries the same frequency out there. You call, and the universe answers not with words, but with alignment. The law of resonance is one of the subtlest yet most powerful principles governing this world. Everything is vibration, and every vibration seeks compatibility. A sound, when struck, will cause objects of the same frequency to resonate. A heart filled with love will touch the heart that is searching for it. A beautiful thought will be supported by corresponding circumstances to bloom. Not because the world favors anyone, but because the world responds in accordance with what you emit. You cannot fake vibration. You cannot use beautiful words to cover a field of energy out of tune. Everything in this universe is honest at the level of waves. If you feel no one understands you, no one comes to you, no opportunities find you, do not rush to blame life. Look again at the frequency you are living. For synchronicity does not come from desire, but from inner consistency. When you change your vibration, you do not need to seek new people, new jobs, or new circumstances. Those things will come to you because you have begun to send out compatible signals. Life does not operate by force. It operates by natural attraction. What is alike finds each other. What is opposite reveals each other. And what is neutral dissolves into each other in silence. You do not need to know how to control the river of synchronicity. You only need to learn how to flow with it. That is when you stop forcing, stop controlling, stop worrying about how things must be. Instead, you begin to live as if you are already part of a greater rhythm. You begin to observe. You become sensitive to signs. You grow patient with timing. And then you begin to feel that river is not taking you anywhere. It is bringing you home. Home to a state where everything arrives at the right time, the right person, the right place. Not earlier, not later. When you are not ready, that flow may remain silent. But when you step into the right frequency, everything seems to awaken. You do not need to exert much effort. Every door opens with a single key alignment. Synchronicity is the gift of presence. The more authentic you live, the more you touch the right wave. The more you listen to your intuition, the clearer the messages become. And the beautiful thing is, you do not need to become anyone else. You only need the courage to return to yourself. Because you, in the version without defenses, without doubt, without hurry, are the strongest transmitter to resonate with what is true out there. Synchronicity is not something to chase. It is something you become. And once you live in resonance, you will see things that logic cannot explain begin to happen. Repeated numbers, chance encounters, seemingly scattered pieces suddenly fitting together. This is not a miracle. It is logic at a deeper level of reality, where everything that happens is guided by waves. You can feel it when walking under a row of trees and suddenly your heart softens, when you hear a piece of music and tears fall without knowing why, when you look into someone's eyes and feel as if you have known them forever. These moments are reminders there is a river beneath all things, and that river flows through you. And you are not alone. You have never been alone. Every time you send out a thought, a wish, a whisper in your heart, all the particles around you begin to rearrange. All the waves begin to resonate. All compatible possibilities begin to find their way toward you, and when the time is ripe, they appear without you having to chase them. Synchronicity does not come to please you. It comes to clarify you. If you see unwanted things repeating, take it as a message about the frequency you are sustaining. If you begin to see beautiful signs, unexpected opportunities, warm encounters, know that you are beginning to resonate rightly. In the end, what you send out is what you will live with. There is no need to strive to be lofty, only to be true. Resonance begins with the smallest things: how you think, how you choose words, how you walk, how you keep your mind clear. And then step by step that river will lift you, not by rowing, only by trusting. No one walks through life without once passing through the fire. Not the fire of the world, but the invisible flame that burns away the old layers within us. That fire does not come to destroy, it comes to purify. It burns what no longer belongs. It illuminates what we once tried to hide, and then it leaves within us something deeper, truer, beyond naming. Every upheaval is not a catastrophe, it is an invitation. When something collapses, it is not because life is unfair. It is because something deeper is asking to be rebuilt on a more genuine foundation. Broken relationships, shattered dreams, closed doors, all of these do not happen to punish you, but to draw you closer to your true essence within. The fire does not choose the perfect. It seeks out what is still rough, what has never been touched, what can crack open for light to enter. And those very cracks, if you are brave enough not to run away, become openings through which you can step out of your cocoon and begin the journey of transformation. You may have lived through sleepless nights, questions without answers, moments when you felt as if you were losing direction, losing everything, losing yourself. But listen closely, in that pain you are not losing. You are being called back to the deepest part of yourself, called back to the authentic life you had forgotten while chasing what lies outside. Transformation does not happen in the comfort zone. It happens when everything familiar is shaken. When you no longer have your old anchors, you begin to turn inward to find your roots again. When you no longer know what to trust, you begin to hear that small but steady voice within the one that has always been there, waiting for you to be quiet enough to listen. People often fear change because they fear losing control. But control has never been true safety. It is only the illusion of certainty. Transformation, though unpredictable, is the only doorway to inner freedom. When you release control, you begin to live authentically. When you accept the fire, you begin to be reborn. Look back at the times you thought you could never endure, yet you did. The pains that once brought you to your knees now, they have become the ground on which you stand more firmly. The wounds that once silenced you, now they have become the language through which you understand others more deeply. This is not something you learned from books. It is wisdom forged in fire. The fire does not burn you away. It burns away what you no longer need to carry. It does not take away who you are. It takes away the shell that has grown too tight so you can expand. If you only see the pain, you will fear and shrink. But if you see the purification, you will understand that you are being shaped by an invisible hand, not to become someone else, but to return to yourself. True transformation does not come from how much you gain. It comes from what remains after everything outside has changed. How much truth remains, how much love, how much trust, how much light that cannot be extinguished. That is the essence the fire leaves behind, the part you cannot lose because it never came from outside. And then you will see the very phases you once hated become the greatest gifts. For without them, you would never have stopped to look within. You would never have discovered how vast your hidden strength truly island. You would never have known how your heart can soften and yet remain unshakable at the same time. Do not rush to extinguish the fire when it appears. Breathe. Stand still in the eye of the storm. Let it burn away what is false, what is ready to depart. And while the fire is doing its work, keep your heart open, because once you pass through the fire and still carry tenderness, you have not merely survived, you have been transformed. Those who have walked through fire are no longer the same. They speak less, listen more. They no longer seek the light outside, for they have found it within. They no longer need to prove anything, for their very presence is proof. And because of this, they become a quiet flame, not loud, but warm enough to comfort those walking through the night. Transformation is a gift if you look at it with eyes no longer afraid. It is the message that you were not born to remain small, that this life does not come to keep you safe, but to awaken you into your most radiant form. that no matter how many times you have broken the light within you has never gone out. And if you are in the fire right now, remember you are not alone. Everyone you admire has walked this path. Every awakened soul has burned silently. The only difference is they did not run. They let the fire teach them what gentle light could not. And then they emerged not to tell the tale of the storm, but to guide those still searching for the way. You do not need to wait until the fire is out to begin living truly. Live within it. Love even while it hurts. Trust even before results appear. For that is how fire becomes light. Not by destruction, but by awakening. There is a rhythm unfolding within you without pause from the moment you were born until the very last second of physical life. It is the rhythm of breath. Nothing complicated, no sophisticated equipment, no teacher required. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And hidden within this cycle that seems so simple lies one of the most intricate codes for stepping into balance, healing, and connection with the source of energy within. Breath is not merely a biological mechanism. It is the language of life energy. It is the bridge between body and consciousness, between the individual heartbeat and the heartbeat of the universe. When you are anxious, breath becomes shallow. When you are at peace, it becomes deep and slow. When you are afraid, it quickens. And when you are present, breath turns into a gentle, warm current embracing the entire inner space. Pause for a moment and sense your own breath. Do not adjust, do not force. Simply observe. And then you will see each current of air passing through your body seems to carry a message, a kind of subtle intelligence that the mind does not need to translate into words. It only needs you to be present. At the center of the human energy system, there is a powerful magnetic field radiating from a place often overlooked: the heart. Not the brain, not the command center, but the heart, the only organ that is both physical and symbolic, pumping blood and radiating light. According to scientists at the HeartMath Institute, the magnetic field generated by the heart is thousands of times stronger than that of the brain. It not only responds to emotions, but also influences physiological states and your overall vibrational field. When you breathe deeply into the heart area, you awaken a state called coherence, the synchronization between heart, brain, and the entire nervous system. This is not mysticism. It is experiential fact. And most importantly, you need no tool other than your own breath to activate it. Every time you inhale and bring awareness to your heart, you are sending a signal to the whole body: I am safe. You are lowering stressful beta waves, raising the frequencies of presence, gratitude, and positive emotion. And it is those very frequencies that truly reset the reality you live in. The outer world may be chaotic, but if within you there is steady breath and an open heart space, you will not be swept away. You begin to become a transmitter. Your heart is no longer just a biological organ. It becomes a central drum resonating with everything, vibrating at a similar frequency. You stop living in reaction. You start living by choice. Imagine waking one morning and spending the first 5 minutes simply breathing slowly through your heart. No thoughts, no worries. Just inhale, gentle, deep. Exhale, relaxed, complete. After those 5 minutes, you will enter the new day in an entirely different state. No coffee required, no external motivation, just a heart beating in rhythm with life itself. The magnetic field of the heart is also where you broadcast what you do not put into words. Others may not hear you speak, but they feel you. They feel your honesty, your openness, your calm, or your agitation through the energy you carry. And likewise, you are receiving thousands of invisible signals from the world around you, not with your eyes or ears, but through the very field of your heart. Therefore, when you change your inner state, you do not only change yourself, you change the frequency you are transmitting, and those frequencies will draw to you experiences that match them. That is why people with open hearts often bring a sense of ease, not because they are perfect, but because they are in sync with life, and their field is strong enough for others to feel lifted without a word being spoken. The deepest healing does not occur through language. It occurs when you sit beside someone with an open heart and suddenly you find yourself breathing more freely, feeling seen, understood, accepted without judgment. That state does not require knowledge. It requires presence. It requires the vibration that flows from a place no longer resisting life but walking alongside it. And if at some moment you find yourself lost in chaos, disoriented, disconnected, do not try to do something grand. Return to the breath, return to the heart, Place your hand on your chest, close your eyes, and breathe. Each breath then is like a message. Everything is returning to its place. You do not need to understand it all. You only need to feel it. Breath is the background music life composed within you. The magnetic field of the heart is the essence you have carried since birth. They do not need to be created. They only need to be remembered. And in the moment you breathe, become present, open your heart. You are not only alive, you are transmitting a frequency the entire world longs to feel. There is something rarely spoken aloud, yet you can sense it clearly. Fear has a form. It is not as abstract as people think. It has sound rhythm cycles and its own energy field. And sometimes it is encoded in the symbols we call numbers. Have you ever felt that a certain number follows you, as if it is pointing to something deeper than what the eye can see? A repeated sequence, a familiar string of digits appearing everywhere. Some patterns make you pause for a moment, not knowing why, but something touches a part of your deep unconscious. And conversely, there are also number sequences that people fear, not because they are inherently dangerous, but because meaning has been assigned to them over generations. Human beings live among countless systems of symbols, yet numbers are one of the oldest codes through which collective consciousness interacts with the unseen. In the ancient world, sages did not use mathematics to count, but to express vibration. Each symbol carries its own rhythm, its own form of energy. They do not merely measure the world, but describe it at a deeper level where everything is oscillation and code. Fear also has its own code, and when it spreads, it does not need images, voices, or reasoning. It only requires a certain vibration broadcast often enough on enough frequencies. And then it begins to affect an entire collective, like an interference wave disrupting the original signal of a functioning network. Suddenly, people no longer see the world as it is, but as if everything is threatening them. That is when the network of consciousness begins to fall out of rhythm. Because human beings do not live in isolation. We are connected by millions of invisible threads. A single negative thought, if strong enough, can affect many others. A fear, if reinforced by social signals, can become a shared reality, even if it never truly existed in essence. Picture consciousness as a global bioelectrical network. Each person is a node, each thought is a pulse, and every emotion you emit contributes to the overall vibration of that network. When you are afraid, you are sending a weak signal into the system. When you are at peace, you are restoring clarity to the entire flow. Fear does not arise on its own. It is sown from ancestral memory, from stories told by adults, from media imagery, from symbols highlighted through tragedy, and then it becomes a conditioned reflex. You see a symbol, you shrink back. You hear a sequence of sounds, you tense up. But if you pause long enough to observe, you will see most fear does not come from reality. It comes from being manipulated without realizing it. No one can manipulate you if you do not resonate with their frequency, and no frequency can penetrate you if you are broadcasting a stronger, brighter, steadier signal. That is why, in times of chaos, keeping your personal field of consciousness clean is not optional but a duty. Not only to protect yourself, but to keep the collective network from drifting away from its original rhythm. When you face a symbol that frightens you, do not avoid it. Ask, what have I been programmed to believe about this? Who assigned meaning to it? And why did I accept it without ever verifying? Because when you question it, you begin to dismantle the programming. When you see through the illusion, you begin to perceive the original energy, and then you can choose how you want to respond. Symbols have no inherent good or bad. They are merely signs, but the vibration you attach to them determines their effect on you. One person may see a symbol as an omen of misfortune. Another may see it as a sign of rebirth. One person avoids a number out of fear of evil. Another sees it as a representation of inner balance. All are true if you believe them, but you are not bound to old programming. You can choose again the vibration you wish to send, receive, and live with. The network of consciousness does not require everyone to awaken at once. It only needs a small number, strong enough, bright enough, steady enough to act as anchor points. From those still points, the waves ripple outward. Frequencies are restored, and gradually the entire network remembers its original resonance, where there is no fear, only awareness, no polarity, only harmony, no control, only freedom through consciousness. You do not need to fight fear. You only need to stop broadcasting in alignment with it. You do not need to run from a symbol. You only need to stop vibrating on the level where it was colored. And when you can hold that state, you are not only healing yourself, you are recalibrating a part of the network to which you are connected. And that is the deeper reason for every inner journey to become a still point within the swirl, to no longer be driven by low vibrations, to stop living in reaction, to choose again how you want to contribute to the collective symphony, not through grand gestures, but through each breath, each observation, each moment you choose to return to truth. Not everything sacred is found in temples. There are rituals that require no incense, no special garments, no chants rising into the air. They unfold quietly in the heart in moments that seem utterly ordinary, when you sit alone under the night sky, when you watch sunlight slip through a crack in the door, when you fall silent amid countless sounds. These are the rituals. No one witnesses yet. They are where consciousness is most deeply refined. The silence of the stars is not emptiness. It is a symphony so subtle that only truly quiet souls can perceive it. No noise, no performance, no need for affirmation. That silence is where everything knows its role in the universe. Nothing rushes, nothing is lost. All are shining in the right place at the right time, at the right frequency. And human beings deep down also carry within them the ability to resonate with that stillness, but not by searching outside, rather by accepting within. By accepting the truth that stillness is not a state you must reach after hours of meditation. It is something always present, waiting only for you to pause, to return, and to release. The world has grown accustomed to a hurried rhythm. You are pushed to respond quickly, to answer at once, to explain immediately. But true ritual does not require haste. It is a space where time pauses, where you no longer strain to keep up appearances, where you are free to be yourself unguarded. And in that pause you begin to see what noise had hidden. Suffering does not come to torment you. It comes as a teacher knocking softly to ask, "Are you ready to return?" Suffering is not meaningless. It is the trial within a greater ritual, the ritual of awakening. Every pain is a gateway. If you only struggle to escape, you will miss the chance to pass through. But if you dare to remain with the pain with an open heart, you will see it begin to dissolve, making space for a deeper understanding. Not an understanding of the intellect, but of compassion. A knowing beyond words, reaching into the soul's depths. The stars do not shout to be seen. They shine in silence. In the same way, you do not need to recount everything you have endured. The energy field you carry, the calmness in your gaze, the certainty in your steps, these are the living proof of the path you have walked. No one can take that away, because it did not come from outside. It is the crystallization of the moments when you dared to remain with the darkness without fear. There is a truth the ancients always safeguarded. Every stage of suffering hides within it a code of rebirth. But that code activates only when you stop resisting. When you cease asking, "Why me?" and begin to ask, "What is this pointing to within me?" In the moment you change the question, you are no longer a victim. You become the one performing the ritual. And each tear shed then is no longer a sign of weakness, but a sign of the masks dissolving. The most sacred rituals always require just one thing: full presence. No complex action, only your being here. Being here when your heart aches. Being here when you feel abandoned. Being here when no one understands you. And being here when even you do not understand yourself. For in each of those moments, if you are brave enough not to turn away, you will begin to see light streaming through the smallest cracks. The silence of the stars is a reminder that you do not need to cry out to exist. You have always belonged, and suffering in its own way is the quiet guide helping you remember this. Not to make you endure, but to help you grow. Not to make you suppress, but to help you understand more deeply. And not to make you close, but to help you open in a way that light can enter. If you are in the midst of a difficult season, try pausing for a moment. Not to analyze, not to seek immediate solutions, but simply to be present. Step out of the cycle of habitual reactions. Place your hand on your heart, close your eyes, and breathe, truly breathe. For in that moment, the breath itself is the ritual, the bridge carrying you back to the steadiness that has always been within you. No one needs to witness that ritual for it to hold value. It only requires you to be honest with yourself, not pretending to be fine, not forcing yourself to be strong, just you with a heart that lives true. And that truth is what touches the vibrational plane where the stars shine. No embellishment, no noise, yet enduring and infinite. Suffering is not the end. It is the beginning of a new level in the journey. If you are patient enough to walk with it to the end, you will no longer be the same person, not because you overcame the pain, but because you learned how to walk with it steadily, quietly, like the stars that continue to guide through the night, without needing anyone's praise. Not a single action, thought, or vibration of yours is meaningless. All leave traces, not as punishment, but as the natural feedback of a universe that operates through resonance. This is the deepest essence of karma, not a sentence imposed by some external power, but the precise reflection of what you emit. Every seed you plant in the collective field of consciousness will find a way back to you, not to condemn, but to complete the cycle. In the deeper layers of this understanding, you begin to see clearly you are not merely the receiver of karma, you are its creator. Each time you imagine, you initiate a new field of energy. Every time you envision something with genuine emotion, you are reprogramming your reality. And imagination, when used rightly, ceases to be a tool for daydreaming and becomes an act of cooperation with the source. Imagination is the language of the soul. It is the unopened map of all possibilities. When you imagine a better world, a deeper version of yourself, an action born of love instead of fear, you are not merely dreaming. You are laying the vibrational foundation for that to take form. And the universe, like a neutral artisan, only needs a clear pattern to begin materializing. That is why in every ancient tradition the act of imagination was regarded as a sacred ritual, not as a means of escaping reality, but as a way of upgrading it from within. For everything that exists was once an unseen image in someone's consciousness. No accomplishment ever came by chance. It came because someone believed enough to see it before it was seen. But imagination cannot function rightly if you still feel separate. As long as you believe you are a solitary being adrift in a chaotic universe, all creative efforts will carry tension. But when you remember that you are an inseparable part of the source, everything begins to shift. You no longer create from lack. You begin to express what has always been present. Union is not theory. It is direct experience. It is when you no longer divide mind from body, self from universe, me from them. Everything merges as water flows into the ocean, not lost, not swallowed, but expanded, harmonized, deepened. In that state, you need not do anything to connect with the source. You realize you were never apart. And from that awareness, all old karma begins to dissolve. Not because you escape it, but because you no longer broadcast at the frequency that repeats it. You stop reacting as before, so the outcomes no longer mirror the past. You stop playing the old role, so the stage changes. You step out of the cycle not through force, but through understanding. There is no need to fight the dark. You only need to turn on the light. Imagination in the hands of one who has remembered union becomes the most wondrous instrument. You can imagine peace and feel it instantly. You can imagine healing and the body begins to adjust. You can imagine a world where people treat one another with compassion, and you become the doorway through which that world begins to appear. You do not imagine to escape reality. You imagine to fill it with light. You do not wait until you are perfect to dream of something better. It is precisely because you dare to dream that change begins. And when your vibration shifts, you need not take grand action. Everything around you begins to align in harmony. Returning to the source does not mean leaving the world. It is coming back to the center of yourself, where you no longer get lost in form, no longer identify with roles, no longer get pulled into fear, but begin to live from a deeper axis. That axis is not shaken by circumstances. It does not waver with praise or blame. It does not lose itself amid change. It observes, receives, and radiates. You do not need to climb high to find God. You only need to go deep, beneath the false self, beneath the labels, beneath the noise and the programming. And there, in the simplicity of stillness, you realize God is not elsewhere. God is you, in the version no longer afraid, no longer divided, no longer doubting yourself. And when you live from that point of union, karma becomes a fluid current. You are no longer swept away by it, but begin to dance with it. You understand that everything that comes and goes does not define you, but reflects you. You do not cling. You do not demand. You do not resist. You simply observe, adjust your vibration, and let yourself flow with the life that leads you back to the source. In the end, we are all returning to the same place, not a geographical place, but a plane of awareness, a place with no name, no ritual, no fixed form, It has only one feeling: you belong, and you have never left. Every journey is only a circle guiding you back to what was always there. No proof required, no striving, only remembering, and living as though you are already united. This is not an ending. It is a beginning, the beginning of a new life where every thought, every emotion, every action of yours no longer carries fear, but carries the clarity of imagination and the absolute trust in a universe that is intelligent, benevolent, and just to the finest vibration.